So, good afternoon, everybody. I today will be understanding about okay, fine. Uh, Chapter fifth in international relations. So, we'll be talking about or discussing about interwar developments, which is basically Treaty of Versailles and the Great Economic Depression. Like, how did the countries have gone through so much, and how did they emerge as the source of the developed nations or the nuances that they are in, and how did the interwar developments, like after the First World War, and how did this uh, Treaty of Versailles or even the peace declaration treaties, like how did these have more aggravated or the aggravated causes for Second World War to erupt, because the destructions caused by the First World War are huge. And that's why it's also called as Great War. And with the more or less the industrial revolution that has come upon, and the countries have become more aggravated in terms of expansion and occupying the colonies. So, in terms of such, the how did this has helped them to overcome this Great Depression, and how did they build from the rubbles of the war destructions? So we'll be understanding basically nothing but interwar developments, and we'll be understanding or analyzing what is Treaty of Versailles and what impositions that it has put on Germany, or like how did Germany had been paying war reparations for England and France, and how the USA has been acting as an the harbinger of like development. So we'll be talking about all those things. So first, let us understand like the Treaty of Versailles is basically the outcome of after the World War One. So and this has went on with further treaties with the nations. So if you remember these things in a timeline, it's well and good, because these are important for MCQs. So first one will be Treaty of Versailles. With has happened with Germany. Then Treaty of Saint-Germain, it's with Austria. Then Treaty of Neuilly with Bulgaria. Then Treaty of Trianon with Hungary, and the peace treaty with Turkey. So Treaty of has Versailles, we can say, has in order it rearranged the power structure. So it rearranged the power structure and the power holdings of the entire Europe, and it has got down Germany's pride, Germany's military, and Germany's sentiments. Like it's like put a concrete wall around it type. So it they humiliated Germany with this Treaty of Versailles. So this in fact pushed Germany to kick back later very strongly. So that's why it has led to mostly the Second World War. They call it as a reparations or the insults that have been caused during Treaty of Versailles after the First World War. So this Treaty of Versailles is very important. I think you might be reading about it since your school in history, like Treaty of Versailles is after the First World War. It's upon the Germany, so treaty with Germany and the reparations war destruction amount that has to be paid to Britain and France. Like this, you might be hearing about it. Like today, we'll be understanding it from the political point of view. So, like immediately after the World War, there has been a peacemaking techniques. So in yesterday's class, we have understood like how did this war has went on, and what are the consequences, and what is the course of war, and what are the further developments that have happened after the war. So in this, we'll be understanding about like what is after, like post-war preparations, or post-war insults, or post-war reconstruction. So in such terms, we'll be understanding about what is like there are certain peacemaking instruments that have went on after World War One. So one of such thing is Woodrow Wilson's 14 point proposal. So this is nothing but the Woodrow Wilson have come up with this 14 points, which were to be called as a lasting peace of war-scarred nations. So this is nothing but like he has come up with certain rules and regulations that has to be followed for nations to be living in international space. Why is it so? Because he says that the international space goes space, I mean international relations among the nations, not like space or something else. So international relations among the countries would go unnoticed because there is no universal authority. So there is no basically no anarchy. This proposal has been accepted by even the realists and the structural realists that there exists literally no central authority in international space. So this no presence of central authority has created the anarchic type structures. So this has led for the countries to act in a haste. Like if you look at the Hobbes state of nature, so as Hobbes state of nature, self-preservation is crucial. Like self harmony is what emancipation is what needed, right? In order to preserve yourself, humans will fight among themselves. Just like that, if you put it in international space, in order for countries to protect themselves, self-preserve themselves, and to protect their national interests, they be acting out uh, very violently or like nearby war-like situations will be happening. So Woodrow Wilson, in his 14-point proposals, have come up with certain regulations like international trade should be open, the border should international trade should be answered for, and should avoid like war type situations, and there has to be peace and no hastiness, like all such things have been put forward. But interestingly, this Woodrow Wilson's 14-point formula, it could be nowhere seen in Treaty of Versailles. So, as though they say the Treaty of Versailles, the peace-making agreement, or it's upon the consolidation of German power to abide by the rules and regulations of so and so countries. But the nowhere in Treaty of Versailles it mentions the concept of peace. Nowhere it mentions the concept of settlement or even looking for avoiding warlike situations. So this is what the irony that it has went and it has caused the destruction of Second World War. So then League of Nations also failed to assure political independence to all the states, big, small, and alike, because this can be seen because in spite of League of Nations existing after the 1919, there were the nations still fighting among themselves and colonies were occupied from one country to another, and the colonialism has been on uh, more than more powerful than ever. So all these things like neither the 14-point formula nor the League of Nations nor the Treaty of Versailles could control this outbreak of the war. Now next one is secret treaties. So what is the secret treaties is in order, see, countries were not uh, what can we call it? They were not trusting each other. So imagine you are in an international space and you don't trust a country which is also part of an organization that you were part of, which would actually control the outbreak of the war. So in spite of this thing, what these some of the countries do is like they make this secret treaties or secret agreements so that if they think that this nation, if at certain point it attacks on them, then they can, then these secret treaties could help them get the partnership of the nations that they have agreed with. So this is how they have been making secret treaties. So this can also be seen. Then next comes Bolshevik Revolution in USSR. So what happens in 1917? Russia had a revolution. So this revolution has shaken up the world, especially the capitalist world. They were worried that this communism outbreak would be there in other parts of the world, and they were worried that it might take over their capitalistic states. So the Bolshevik Revolution also influenced the Peace Paris Conference, and this kind of created the panic that just like I've said, this creation of panic has led the countries to further get into secret treaties, and they have rigorously maintained uh, control, or they have rigorously looked into things that they can avoid, so that the revolution could be avoided. So that's why the uh, Treaty of Versailles also. That's why we could see it. Germany has been put on such restrictions. So they were kind of like worried if this countries would be taken over by the communist revolution. So that's why this is like all intra pacts, or it's basically for these three main important countries that they have come up with this and made a pact. So basically, it's USA, England, and France. Next one is Germany. Also resisted the influence and expansion of socialist Russia, but in spite of that, the Allies demanded unconditional acceptance of treaty, and for that, the Germany had no alternative. So no alternative but get into this Treaty of Versailles in 1919 on June 28th. So that's why, like, even though the communist outbreak would come up, or another Bolshevik revolution would not take place in Germany, but I had this support earlier. The Western nations were panicked that what if they both ally and combine together? So that would be an indestructible force, and they would take over their places in the Western Europe. So that's why this has been the sole interest or the condition of the powers like UK, USA, and France and Italy were deeply involved with the peace terms. So that's why they were particularly mentioning they particularly wanted Germany to surrender. They did not give it any alternative. There was too much insult upon the nationalism, upon the national sentiments of the Germany, so that the oppression could be controlled. So that's why, and also there's a one another very big player with this interwar situation is United States of America. So most of the time, most part of the time, as it stayed away from the war, and also it has followed protectionist policy. But once the war was over, the main agenda is to secure its economic place. It's to cover up or to expand its economic base, because as the central powers or the superpowers have been distracted and due to the World War, and the development was has been stalled. Now, USA saw it as an opportunity to grow itself and its main agenda to expand itself all over the world. So this could be seen as a sole uh, USA could be seen as a sole benefiter of of this war. And also, France established French supremacy in Europe, and this French supremacy was has been looked into only because to control the expansionist tendencies of Germany and to break Germany and make it weak. Then next comes the main provisions of Treaty of Versailles. So these are important provisions for Treaty of Versailles, because if you go through these treaties, you can understand how Germany was humiliated and how this Treaty of Versailles have paved way for eruption of World War II again. And also the powers like USA, UK, and France, Italy, they have tried to establish their control over the Europe. So first one is territorial provisions. So territorial provisions is first thing is France was given back Alsace and Lorraine, which was rich in iron ore. So that was Alsace, that was part of Lorraine. So it was given back to France. Then Belgium, it got back Eupen and Malmedy. Then Denmark has received northern part of Schleswig. Then also Germany lost many of its Polish speaking districts and Polish controlled territories. So they were given back to Poland. Then Saar Valley was formed into an area under control of international commission. So this Saar Valley also put under the control of international commissions, and its coal mines were ceded to France, and inhabitants were given an option. A plebiscite was put. So based on that plebiscite, it was decided that whether inhabitants of that coal mines wanted to return to Germany or they would like to reunite with France. So this were certain things or the territorial provisions, and a few of other territorial provisions is Memel was ceded to Principal Allies, and later it was handed over to Lithuania in 1924. And also the Silesia was also ceded to Czechoslovakia, and Poland was given special rights to the city of Danzig. So these are some of the territorial provisions that have been made with the peace treaty. So that's why, see, you can see that how many reconstructions, how many detailed provisions that have been given. So that's why Treaty of Versailles is very important. So if you can understand these provisions over like over territory or economic or political prospects, then you can understand like why the countries are bordered or maintained their relationship as such in current world. So next one is economic provisions. So basic, see, main agenda of this economic provisions or whatsoever the territory or military or political provisions is to keep check on Germany. So they wanted to like they wanted to zone this black zone this Germany or either we build a wall around Germany so that that could be controlled. So that's why in economic provisions, their main agenda, see, how can you control a nation when you cut off its industrial prospects, when you cut off its economy, when you cut off its trade, or when you reduce its military, or when you install when you disinstall the democratic the elections, all these things can help a nation to downfall or cause instability. So the economic provisions were mostly created to make Germany economically weak. So they were forced to accept the war guilt. This has hurt so many sentiments of the people, and armies also have occupied. See the sorry the oh, enemy armies have occupied the Germany left bank of the Rhine River. So they were like, until you sign this, we are not moving from here. So this is like upon part of humiliation that it was forced to sign this Treaty of Versailles. Now, next thing is military provisions. So military provisions are also very important. So if you want to break down a nation or break down its power, then you hit on its military provisions. So it's like they have crippled for all the military strength of Germany, and they abolished this compulsory military training service in Germany. Then Germany was also removed from eastern bank of Rhine, and cannons and battleships were reduced. So in a way, it's like decommissioning all the military assets, decommissioning all the standing armies, or the cannons or the battleships, whatever that were pride of Germany during the World War. So all these things were taken back of, I mean, that is a provision, military provisions in the Treaty of Versailles. The next thing is legal provisions. So the legal provisions can also be seen from Kaiser William point of view. So the Kaiser William, who was the Emperor of Germany, he was accused as a main criminal or the chief criminal in this war. So, but the Holland, which refused to surrender the fugitive Kaiser to allies, but Germany also agreed to surrender other persons accused of having committed the war crimes. So this is how the legal provision, like not only signed to the economic, political, territorial sanctions, but also hand over the important persons that are responsible for the war. Now, League of Nations, with the primary object of maintaining international peace. So, the League of Nations, which was established mainly to, what can we say, like, what is the agenda of League of Nations? To avoid war, to maintain peace, international peace, and to resolve issues which could lead to war. So, but the primary object of all these things have been cancelled out. So, and in this we can see in during Second World War, and also it also provided for international labor organizations. So Treaty of Brest-Litovsk concluded between Germany and Russia also abrogated. Then let us estimate this treaty. So, what are the gives drawbacks and what are the takeaways of this treaty? From the point of view of Germans, they describe it as a dictated peace because it puts so many restrictions on them, and they would not be given any chance to negotiate. So this has, in a way, be like a dictatorship rule kind of thing. So, and also unheard of robbery of Germans people and as a big theft. And peaceful settlement was made with the spirit of revenge. So, this, if you look at the Treaty of Versailles, this is more or less could be seen as a revenge. So, this is nothing but a revenge to the war. And as it has lost it, so it has to abide by these features of the tactics or the prospects of the peacemaking. Then Treaty of Versailles contain a struggle between three conflicting ideals. So what are these ideals? The idealism of Woodrow Wilson, then nationalism of Clemenceau, and opportunism of George Lloyd. So all these clash of personalities have come together and they've been tried to maximize the the war indemnizations to maximize the post-war repercussions or post-war development. So in a way to that, the deals that have been made to sign by the Germany are very uh, powerful, or they kind of insult the Germany. So Treaty of Versailles was also breach of faith. The promises were also given to Germany, they were not fulfilled, and the moral defects of the Treaty of Versailles also cannot be outlooked. So, and the treaty contained the seeds of Second World War, and crushing war indemnity was imposed upon Germany. So that's what. This was highly not truthful to Germany. This has humiliated Germany very strongly, and this has sowed the seeds of immorality and international blame of the war indemnity was imposed upon Germany to pay the post-war constructions to Britain and France. So now treaties with other central powers. So the Treaty of Versailles is with Germany. Now, similarly, like that, there are other treaties also which have been happened with the other countries. Second one of such is Treaty of Saint Germain 1990. So this was made between Hungary, Australia, and the Allies. So, what happens in this is the Austria had to be completely independent of Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and Yugoslavia. And the treaty kind of reduced Austria to a small republic with a smaller population than that of Portugal. Because earlier it was a huge nation, so now it was recognized free of Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and Yugoslavia. So it's lost most of its geography. So now it is came to be known as a smaller population than that of Portugal. And army also was reduced to 30,000 men. That's it. Next one is Treaty of Trianon 1920. This treaty was made between Hungary and Allies. And just like Treaty of Germain has separated Austria from Hungary, so this Trianon also separates Hungary from Austria. Then after that, the Croatia was given to Yugoslavia, and Slovakia was given to Czechoslovakia. So this how the restructure. So this is how the restructuring of Europe has happened after the World Wars. Then Treaty of Nearly in 1919. This is between Bulgaria and the Allies. So what happens? Basically, during the Balkan Wars, 1912 and 1930, which was not given. So this was, uh, excuse me. So this was given back to the Bulgaria, but also Bulgaria had to pay the war indemnity, $500 million. Then Treaty of Severus, 1920, Turkey and its allies. So what happened in this Treaty of Severus is Mesopotamia, Jordan, like the Transjordan, and Syria and Palestine were taken away from the Turkey, and Syria was in fact given to France. It was under the mandate of League of Nations, and also Palestine, Mesopotamia, Transjordan were given to England under the mandate system. And treaty with the Turkey led to the rise of Mustafa Kemal in Turkey. So this is how the treaty with the Turkey has also restructured the Turkey's map, and it was given its territories to the other stronger nations. Then let us understand, like these treaties over a period have been kind of tell you that how the restructuring has happened uh, in the Europe after the World War, and how this has paved the way for certain humiliations, and how this has paved the way for certain uh, post-war reconstruction. Now let us understand like what is Great Economic Depression. So the depression in 1929 and 31 was so bad that it led to the closure of industries. There has been high rates of unemployment. Millions of people belonging to America and Europe, they have suddenly become poor and they started losing their jobs. So this is how, that's why it is described as a Great Depression, economic depression. So of 1929 and 31. Now let us analyze like what is the nature of this economic depression and how it has related to the causes through sub various provisions. So the boom and optimism. So what happened? Economic stability. This has boom and optimism has created an economic stability and hope, and this in a way put USA as a center of the boom, and it has seen by keeping it as center of the boom, it has seen the rise of goods and products that have arrived in USA. Now, shrinkage of the world trade. So, USA, which was also central creditor of the Europe, neither needed nor wanted groups from the other countries because Europe also had this industrial revolution, right? So, why would it import things that have been coming from USA when it can be created at their own nation. So this has led to shrinking of world trade because these countries are themselves capable of producing those things. Now, next thing is it imposed taxes on goods coming from abroad with a view to encourage production in their country itself. So see, let's suppose even if people import goods from the other nations just so that they are cheap, but if the tariff on that is higher, the people would be more interested in buying the goods that are produced in their country itself. And money flows from USA to Germany. So USA has been paying money to Germany as a war reconstruction, but in due to Treaty of Versailles, due to Pact of Treaty of Versailles, as a part of reconstruction or as a part of war reparations, Germany was sending this money. They had to send the money to France and England. So whereas this money was sent, then in order to Germany to send money, it had to lend money. Now who is lending this money? Where is she? Where is Germany is lending its money from? It's from USA. So this in a way has went on in a circular notion of money getting pumped into USA economy. So also like USA uses money for lending again. Then crash of 1929. So what happened here is economic decline could be seen in agricultural sector in both America and Canada, and the scientific methods which have been put forward in agricultural sector also produced in abundance. So this abundance of agricultural produce in the nation has also led to fall in agricultural prices. As the demand, see, as the production was more, if the product is more likely to be available in the society, then the product rate gonna be very cheaper. So now with this boom of agricultural machinery, with chemicals and with all those development programs, as the produce was more uh, finished, like more produced than it needed, then first what will happen in the market? The prices will drop down. So this will create the drop in price and the sometimes lower than whatever that has been used to manufacture. So this has further caused the companies to shut down as it was creating them losses and uh, the declining profits which made investors invest less in starting or expanding the industry. So what happened is the effect of that thing where the fell on the producers of raw food and raw materials. So the crash of 1929, it was a very bad period for wheat farmers, cotton, coffee, cacao, sugar, meat everywhere in the world. Now this has also been called as paradox of poverty amidst plenty. So paradox of poverty amidst plenty is like if anything is available more than what is needed, then that its price gonna reduce. So if there's a lot of competition in the market, then price will be reduced so that everybody will be explored. So now the causes for the economic depression. So what are the causes for the economic depression? Economic crisis is also a natural result for the economic for the situation created by the First World War. So this is how the crisis that have been an offshoot of uh, the the repercussions or the post-war developments by First World War. So this has created or indirect or paved the way for economic depression. So then entire economic life of the world was disturbed and especially due to high amounts of reparation that was imposed on defeated nations like Germany. So what happened is after the World War One, the European nations they have remained either directly or indirectly as a debtors like debt to the United States. So this has led to scarcity of gold and the agriculture of Western Europe has suffered and the prices of wheat as has been unexpectedly fall because the purchasing power of people have reduced and there's no money existing to buy such things. Now what happened in Australia, New Zealand, Argentina is the agricultural production increase in access of domestic needs due to the mechanization of culture. So this is how the other countries were taking or were analyzing such things. The next comes during the war, the manpower was needed, and armed forces and the defense powers of the war. And most of the European countries resorted to mechanization of industries on the social basis. Now, what happened is during the industrialization period, as the companies or the industries were rapidly growing, but during the war, the reconstruction of this sector in most of the countries, they have increased the production at one pace. Like as it there existed industrial revolution before also, but once and there was war. Then once war has happened, the countries have started to focus on developing the reconstruction process. So in a movement of this reconstruction process, as the industries were rapidly funded and they were forced to produce so that economy will keep cycling and the jobs be created and economy will be restructuring itself. In a way, they have caused this domino effect where the the production of the countries have rapidly increased and economic nationalism became a new feature of Europe after the World War. So now and let us understand what are the main features of Hoover moratorium. So what is this Hoover moratorium? One of the main feature is it then intergovernmental payments that were suspended for 1 year, and they also postponed dues which were to be paid in 10 installments after the commencement of moratorium. And assistance was to be given to smaller countries because the smaller countries have said to be affected adversely. Because and also during the reconstruction process, it was very difficult as they are smaller countries and their industries are per se like not stable enough to reconstruct themselves in comparison with the powerful nations. And assurance was given by Germany that money saved due to moratorium would be used by her only for economic purposes, not for the military purposes. But it brought no immediate relief to the countries, and neither did Germany's economy got improved. So now let us understand what are the consequences of economic depression. So first of one such consequence is economic consequences. So in economic consequences, what happened is large number of industrial establishments were either closed down or reduced their production because as there was unemployment, as there was purchasing power of people has decreased, and overproduction by the companies have been making the products to be available at cheaper price. This has, in a way, did not create the economy to function properly. So the industries have reduced the production and there prevailed unemployment, and the factory owners also lost the source of income, and Europe and America had to give up their traditional laissez-faire policy. But the USA rather introduced state interference in the economy with a concept of a new policy deal under the presidency of Roosevelt. So this is how the economic restructuring has also happened in the world, and the political consequences would be the European nations. The European nations were affected by this crisis. They thought that the liberal democracy and capitalism were the best route for the economic development, and also fascist and fascist and communist forces also took advantage of this situation to discredit democratic governments. So the wherever there are democratic governments, they say that this is the best form. This could help us grow faster. But where are there are communal governments and the fascist government, they say that this is the best uh, the government to develop. So now next what happens is decline of democracy, dictatorship got natural encouragement. The League of Nations was a principal victim of this crisis. So US isolationism further destroyed their capacity to defend the weaker nations. So US, what did it do? It's like smartly stopped interfering in European matters. It focused on its industries, development, and mass productions with and the new laissez-faire economic policies. So in view of that, the whatever the protection or the look back that it was giving to the smaller nations to develop themselves, they had not been looked after, so their capacity to defend weaker nations have been destroyed. Now, the crisis in different countries. So, see, there's been economic depression is not same all over the world. So, the different countries have analyzed the situation, have handled the situations differently. Now, crisis in economic life has also led to crisis in morals and psychology. So, this has created the concept of moral looked international space in moral perspective. So the post 1934 period, all faith and values that inspired the World War was shaken. And if you look at the United Nations, so the United Nations, the agriculture has received setback, and uh, although the steel company was fully capable, but it only worked to the 1/10 of its capacity. And as Roosevelt became president in 1932, he had abandoned the gold standard, and many New Deal programs were launched, and they were launched to protect the employed and poor and facilitate the recovery of economy. So the main agenda was to facilitate economic reconstruction. Then in Great Britain, economic crisis in by the middle of 1931, the export prices fell and the local markets uh, receded. So as Britain was known for its uh, merchant navy, as known for its naval expansion. So the merchant navy of Britain was also greatly severely hit, and the factories were closed, and the workers became unemployed. So now, if we look at France, if we look at it, the war reparations receipts were suddenly stopped and economic crisis began to subside, yet the France did not uh, come out of that suffering. So France still continued to suffer the Great Depression aftermath consequences, and also it received uh, the indemnizations for Britain and United Nations for its development, but it still failed to rehabilitate their economy. So the France, in spite of receiving the uh, in spite of receiving the indemnizations for the reconstruction of its economy, it failed to rehabilitate the France's economy with the money that was coming in. Now, if we consider Germany mostly it was broke down on morality concept. Like there existed morality crisis, and unemployment and inflation have been in peaks, and the Treaty of Versailles or the peace conferences or this restructuring program have utterly ruined the German economy. It took Germany to recover from its troubles very it was very devastated, and it couldn't recover as the British or USA. Then Hitler propagating dictatorial policies, criticizing democratic institutions, like all these things, the values as such have gained popularity. So as people were morally broken and they faced this humiliation with these treaties, they started to look for the personalities, but this personality was kind of criticizing democratic institutions. So these, as such, the anti-democratic or anti-liberal institutions propaganda was kind of gaining the popularity. Now, if we talk about Austria, so Austria is one of the main central victim of this crisis. And in Austria also, authoritarian dictatorship has emerged, and Italy has opposed the merger of Austria with Germany. Then let us talk about Soviet Union. So Soviet Union, most part of the time, it has uh, maintained this economic isolation and controlled its domestic economy. So it kind of suffered less in comparison with the other European nations. So during this time, it also launched a 5-year plan, which was launched in 1928, but uh, it had already fulfilled the targets of this 5-year plan in 4 years itself. Like, so imagine, like they were trying to say that the Great Economic Depression did not alter the economy of Russia that they meant to say. So that, and this has also led for industrial production, rapid growth in industrial production, and agriculture of Russia had also recovered, and the hostility of Europe towards Russia was forgotten because Europe was uh, Europe was very busy in building its economy, in reconstructing this economy. So the more focus on the um, so have come into the has been sidelined. So this has created Europe space for the Russia focus on its development. So what happened? So what happened with this Russia was, as the European nations, they were kind of busy. So they were busy with their home politics. They were busy with their industrial development. So they have kind of stopped looking over the expansion of the Soviet Russia. So which made Russia to peacefully expand its economy, to peacefully develop its industries, to recover their agricultural and to bring down their to bring up their prosperity of the nation because they were not disturbed by these European powers. So that's why it faced uh, no oppression and it was peacefully expanding so that you could see in its stats that the 5 year plan was able to be achieved in 4 years itself. Now next one would be fascist Italy. So this is like one of the three single party dictatorships that was also badly affected. Then 1926 and 30 the unemployment had been in peaks in Italy, and Mussolini has advertised for small relief measures in a great way. But it was also apparent that the fascist dictatorship was no better than despised democracies in combating depression. So the militaries also began to press for a second revolution, and economic slump and political discontent existed among the people of Italy. Then Mussolini also sought to escape by resorting to external aggression against Abyssinia in Africa. So this is how the Italy has been facing its post economic crisis reconstruction. So what happened is Italy was under Mussolini, who was known to be as a fascist regime. So and also there caused the unemployment crisis in Italy during 1926 to 1930, and also the militarists began to press for a second revolution in Italy. So more destruction and more economic slump, and also there was political discontent among the people, and Mussolini sought to escape by resorting to external aggression, also by Abyssinia in Africa. So this is how the Italy has so far during the Great Economic Reconstruction, Great Economic Depression Reconstruction program, and it has resorted to the fascist regime. Next one, like if let's suppose now this is all happening in Europe. Now, how the other countries all over the world has been addressing or reacting to that economic depression. So this could be seen in India and Eastern Asia. So mostly the India was also under the British rule. So and as the other countries where which were basically the European colonies, they also have started slowly to condemn against the colonial rules. So so they have so they so so what happened was uh, So what happened was these countries were also under the colonial regime. So the process of oppression against the colonial powers, as they were busy reconstructing their own things, their own economy, their own industries, the colonies have started to uh, the colonies have started to So the colonies have started to resort or resent against their rule. So the influence of communism, as expected by the European powers, they did not succeed until or after the Second World War. So they did not, the other countries did not see the wave of communism. So it was not until the Second World War the countries, the revolution have started to begin. And it was not until the Second World War this colonies under the British or the colonies under European Empire also have slowly started to gain their independence. And the decolonization as a wave have started, especially after the post-World War or the inter or during the Cold War era. So this purchasing power of people and nations have become dry. Now as there was no circular economy and the countries were struggling to establish their authority or struggling to develop from the war-indemn nations. The problem with the people also, like they were unemployed, they were unable to get jobs, and this then the purchasing power of people have and of nations also have reduced. Then unemployed people aggravated the situation beyond repair, and economic unrest and political unrest supported each other to damage of the countries. So like as there was no employment, as the countries were not particularly looking into, and they were busy reconstructing their economy. So the meanwhile the people have been unrest, and they violently uh, uh, been fighting against the nations, and this can be especially seen in the colonial countries where the colonies where colonies were occupied by these colonial countries. So, and the unemployment has also got aggravated, and as expected by the Western nations, the communism also did not grow, and the but not until the Second World War. But also it saw the imperialism in Japan. So these things have happened during or after the Great uh, Economic Depression, which was an offshoot to First World War. So this is how various other countries have reacted to the war, have reacted to this economic depression, and how impactful policies have been made, and how also this has paved way for paved way for independence of the many of the colonies, where the colonial empires have lost their control or lost their power, because it has become very difficult for them to manage both at the reconstruction at their mother country, and to get hold or control the political pressure in the colonies. So this is how the Paris Peace Treaty or the Treaty of Versailles and various other treaties followed by that, and the Great Economic Depression further followed by that, have in a way they have caused to the Second World War. They have paved way which created or which hurted the sentiments of the people, or the which hurted the sentiments of the nations, and they have been insulted in international space both morally and they've been humiliated. So people have resorted to the powers which they thought that they could replace their lost morality in international space. So more than doing any good, so other than that, the Treaty of Versailles is also a revenge that has been planned by the Allied powers. So that has been revenge to be taken upon Germany in humiliating its economy, in humiliating their moral prospects, in decreasing their economy, in reducing it to nothing but a small nation which just exists. So this was truly taken upon as a sentiment, as a humiliation by the people, and which further led it to retaliate against more strongly, which led to the destruction and which created the destruction. And that destruction has not only changed the world dynamics, but also the power notion, and which indirectly again paved the way for another proxy war or the Cold War. So the world, that's why they say that the World War One is the crucial war which has changed. So this all could be understood with the Treaty of Versailles and interwar developments and the Great Economic Depression, like how these things have certainly changed the world. European map have certainly changed the power. The power relationships among the nations, and also have led for the another world war, or also like the world that reconstructed world that today we are living in, and also indirectly paved the way for Cold War. Like this is how you can understand the international relations. So if you are looking forward uh, to understand international relations, then you should start with World War One and post-war reconstructions program, because there you can understand that how these countries have made relationships, and how did they started to reconstruct the economy. So you can see if there's an answer on Treaty of Versailles, then you can write the Treaty of Versailles, like what it is, and the main provisions of Treaty of Versailles, and then you can write like the legal, economic, political provisions and the reconstructions that happened, and then you can write about other treaties following that Treaty of Versailles, like Germain, then Trian, uh, then nearly, and treaty with peace treaty with Turkey, all these things. Then if they ask you like how did the Great Economic Depression, so like explain what is Great Economic Depression, then how did it reconstruct or restructure the world. So and then you can go with the nature of economic depression, various points. Then how did USA has played its crucial role in that, or shaping its, or expanding its economy, or expanding its industrial prospects with the Great Economic Depression, and causes of Great Economic Depression. That also you can write. You have to write in these things, and what are the consequences of economic depression, and how various countries have dealt with economic depression in different countries. So how did this go on? Like you can explain with USA, Great Britain, France, Germany. So all these things, and how Soviet Russia and Italy. So this and economic depression, how the other parts of the world like India and East Asia have uh, controlled or have managed those things. So this is all for today. So I hope you are all okay. You all have understood things, and I expect you to revise for tomorrow's class. So I'll be leaving. So see you in tomorrow's class.